It is never too late to be what you might have been. Over the last several years, I collected hundreds of quotes, and those quotes are the foundation for this podcast. Welcome to episode number 9 of the My Quest Fest, and the title of this episode is Never Too Late. Here is this week's quote. It is never too late to be what you might have been. George Eliot. The person that gets credit for this week's quote comes with a little bit of a twist. As I was researching George Eliot, the person who gets the credit for this week's quote, I came across a very excellent article on the website of the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company. And that website, in their history section, has a very succinct and clear article that we can use as the launching pad for this week's episode and dealing with George Eliot. Now, as I said, George Eliot comes with a twist. Here's the article from the BBC. George Eliot was the pen name of Marianne Evans, one of the leading English novelists of the 19th century. Her novels, most famously Middlemarch, are celebrated for their realism and psychological insights. So there we have it. George Eliot is actually Marianne Evans, and she's using George Eliot as a pen name or a pseudonym. And we're going to find out a little bit later in the article exactly why she had to use a pen name. George Eliot was born on November 22nd, 1819, in rural Warwickshire. When her mother died in 1836, Eliot left school to help run her father's household. In 1841, she moved with her father to Coventry and lived with him until his death in 1849. Eliot then traveled in Europe, eventually settling in London. Now, we see here something very interesting that you would consider an obstacle, but George Eliot, or Marianne Evans, overcame that obstacle. When her mother died, she had to go and take care of her father. She had to stop her education. But she didn't let that stop her. She kept seeing, or she kept corresponding with her tutor while she was taking care of her father. Another very interesting thing that we're going to find out about George Eliot, or Marianne Evans, is the fact that for her day in the 1800s, she was pretty radical. She liked to push the envelope. She didn't accept what was the norm of the day. Especially, like, for instance, when she was living with her father before he died, she really didn't want to continue with the religion of her father. She wanted to not go to church, but because her father insisted, she kept going to church during that time. And of course, as we read here, after he died, she was free to do whatever she wanted to do. And we're going to learn that she had, for that day, some really radical views. In 1850, Eliot began contributing to the Westminster Review, a leading journal for philosophical radicals, and later became its editor. She was now at the center of a literary circle through which she met George Henry Lewes. And here is when things really get interesting, with whom she lived until his death in 1878. Lewes was married, and their relationship caused a scandal. Eliot was shunned by friends and family. The reason why George Henry Lewes was still married gets very sticky and gets very complicated. But basically, the short version is he could not legally divorce his wife. And it has something to do with the fact that himself and his wife lived in a communal setup or communal arrangement with 3 other couples. Now, the fact that I've let you in on the communal arrangement, you can see how that could get complicated over time. And so I'll just let you go and search that out and just find out exactly why George Eliot couldn't legally divorce his wife, thus creating this, especially for that day, this scandalous situation where he's still married but living with another woman. Lewis encouraged Eliot to write. In 1856, she began Scenes of Clerical Life, stories about the people of her native Warwickshire, which were published in Blackwood's magazine. Her first novel, Adam Bead, followed in 1859 and was a great success. She used a male pen name to ensure her works were taken seriously in an era when female authors were usually associated with romantic novels. So that gives us some more insight on why she used the pen name, why she used a pseudonym, because females weren't taken seriously at that time in the 1800s, except for writing romance novels. The lesson we learn from that is that she did what she had to do. So many times in our lives, so many times in my life, we want to achieve a certain goal or a certain dream that we have. But as soon as an obstacle comes or gets in our way, we'll stop the fight. We can take encouragement from George Eliot or Marianne Evans in that, hey, do what you have to do legally to achieve those goals and aspirations that we have in life. Her other novels include The Mill on the Floss, 1860, Silas Marner, 1861, Romola, 1863, Middlemarch, 1872, and Daniel Deronda, 1876. The popularity of Eliot's novels brought social acceptance, and Lewis and Eliot's home became a meeting place for writers and intellectuals. So we see here that George Eliot, or Marianne Evans, led a very controversial life for the 1800s. But yet we see, even though there were obstacles, barriers, she did what she had to do to be successful. And we can learn from that in our lives today, is that when we come across those obstacles in our lives, to keep pushing, keep going, keep striving so that we can achieve those goals and those dreams that we have. A number of years ago, kind of related to our quote for this week, I heard another quote that was very similar. That quote struck me at the same time, the same way this week's quote struck me when I first read it. And the quote is, "It's never too late to do that which is right." If there's something, you need to get straight in your life, it's never too late to do that. Never too late to go and tell your spouse, "I'm sorry." Never too late to go to a relative and get things straight. It's never too late to do that which is right. Don't stop dreaming. Don't stop trying to get better. Don't stop trying to improve yourself. It reminds me of another saying, inch by inch, it is a cinch. Thank you so much for joining me this week. And I want you to keep coming back again and again. And I would love it if you would subscribe to the show. And remember this, quotes don't work unless you do. I'm sorry. Never too late to go to a relative and get things straight. It's never too late to do that which is right. Don't stop dreaming. Don't stop trying to get better. Don't stop trying to improve yourself. It reminds me of another saying, inch by inch, it is a cinch. Thank you so much for joining me this week. And I want you to keep coming back again and again. And I would love it if you would subscribe to the show. And remember this, quotes don't work unless you do.